Welcome back to Lordron FM. This is EpicNameBro's Dark Souls Weapon Guide series, and today we have thrusting swords. I'm Marcus, but that's not important. Let's get started. First up today we have the Mail Breaker. A lot of people are under the impression that this is a dagger, and I understand why, but it's classified in-game as a thrusting sword. To get the Mail Breaker, unlock the door on the Dragon Bridge using the key from the church steps and descend into the lower undead burg. Oh, I hate that sentence. It is a treasure in one of the houses. You can only get one per playthrough, and I actually use this weapon to keep up with how many New Game Pluses I'm on. The Mail Breaker has short range and low damage, but it does have a crit modifier of 120, so it's okay for backstabs and ripostes. By the way, a little bit of googling told me there are two accepted ways to pronounce that, so bleh. It doesn't, however, seem to be as good as the Rapier. One common feature for thrusting weapons is that you can use your normal attack while blocking with a shield. That is extremely useful for new players. These thrusting weapons also do not have a kick. They have this really cool looking sweeping attack with a backstep, but it's actually a lot less useful than the kick is. So. As for the Mail Breaker, to be honest, I never use this weapon for anything except keeping up with what New Game Plus I'm on. It has low range and damage. It is light, however, so if you want a backstab weapon but can't carry a rapier, this could be an option. But rapiers are already pretty light, so the low weight means that it could be used as a speedy offhand with an elemental upgrade, but I would use the bandit knife. If you use the Mail Breaker, please sound off in the comments and let me know why. I'll add an annotation here if someone has a good technique with it. Otherwise, it's really not a highly recommended weapon at all. The Rapier is a deadly weapon for PvP and is also useful against a certain boss. You know, the one you can parry. You can pick this up as a drop from the Balder Knights who wield it, or buy it from the undead merchant in the undead burg. Undead. The Rapier has a lower critical rating than both the Bandit's Knife and the Mail Breaker, but it is actually still better for backstabs and ripostes. It has a high base damage, and I might be crazy, but it really seems to me like the thrusting weapons get a hidden bonus to certain attacks. So even though at first glance it looks like it would be weaker than the Bandit's Knife for backstabs and ripostes, it's actually stronger. This hidden attribute, actually, it's basically hinted at in their descriptions. They talk about it's good against armor, so maybe it's an armor penetration stat, maybe it ignores some of the enemy's defense, I'm not sure. In any case, even on my pure dex builds, rapiers deal higher damage than the bandit knife on backstabs and ripostes. It's one of the best weapons for that duty. As a side note, weapon buffs do factor into riposte and backstab damage, but they don't seem to multiply. It really looks like they just get added on like they would for a normal hit, but I haven't done extensive testing on that, so if any of you guys know, you can tell me. Well, if you want to min-max your PvP build for a backstab fishing game, a Chaos Rapier +5 is the best weapon in the game for you. It pretty much, hands down, would be the best weapon for you if you want to do that playstyle. You can get ridiculous damage with minimal stat investment. What are the downsides to this? Well, rapiers only have thrusting attacks and rebound easily off of shields, and do pitiful damage on attacks other than backstabs and ripostes. You know what I like better than the Rapier though? The Estoc. It's found in the New Londo ruins. You can get it from the very beginning of the game without having to fight a single enemy outside, of course, of the Undead Asylum. It has a 100 rating on critical, but it still gets that secret, let's call it a penetration bonus. It's kind of like armor penetration if any of you guys played that certain MMO. Anyway, with its high base damage, the Estoc still hits pretty hard on criticals, but it actually does okay damage with normal attacks as well. I mean, it's not the greatest, but it does alright. It does better than, say, the Rapier or the Mail Breaker. It also has the longest reach of all the thrusting swords, and unlike the Rapier, it also has slashing attacks. And the two-handed R2 is a very nice poke. I suppose I should also mention that all of these thrusting swords can be used to parry when held in the offhand as well. And with the length of the Estoc, it might be a nice offhand for poking. It's a little bit heavier than some of the other ones though. One major downside to the Estoc is that its R1 combo is slower than the Rapier and the Mailbreaker. The first attack looks to have about the same speed as the others, but the follow-up attacks come out a little bit slower, so just be mindful of that. I do like this weapon though. It has a lot of range, versatility to its moveset, and can do good damage with backstabs and riposte due to its high base damage and hidden thrusting, penetration, destruction, raping bonus, whatever you want to call it. And it looks fucking cool too. One major downside that I would like to mention that applies to most thrusting weapons is that they are more difficult to use against some bosses than slashing weapons. For example, Iron Golem and Super Orns in particular have a gap in the hitboxes beneath them in between their legs, and thrusting weapons often hit in that gap when you are locked on. Not a major problem, but annoying nonetheless when you thrust into an empty space between the legs. Actually, that sounds like fun, but so far we have one light weapon, one weapon specialized in criticals, and one versatile weapon with good range. Next up, fast weapon. Ricard's Rapier, or Ricard's Raper, or the Baller Rapier, whatever you want to call it. To get this weapon, all you have to do is kill Prince Baller Ricard in Sin's Fortress. He's extremely easy to beat due to his position on the stairs. Many of his attacks will pass straight over your head. The most important thing to note about Ricard's Rapier is that it has vicious R2 attacks. And when I say R2, I mean strong attacks. I just realized if you're playing on PC or Xbox, I'm talking about strong attacks. They take a ton of stamina, but they strike very rapidly. The downside is that each hit from those strong attacks is weak. So why use this weapon? As you already know by now from watching these videos or just playing the game and being awesome like you are, each hit from a buffed weapon does the full bonus damage from the buff. Since this weapon hits very, very quickly, you can do an extreme amount of burst damage if you are using a buff build. And that is this weapon's role. Ricard was a prince who set out on a journey, but he became undead and disappeared in the north, you know, around Sin's Fortress. I wonder if he was a prince of Astora, maybe? I mentioned that possibility due to his Elite Knight armor, by the way. It is interesting that we can't tell if he is hollow or simply hostile. He might actually be from West Philadelphia. I can't confirm or deny. The final weapon for today is Velka's Rapier. It is found in the painted world of Ariamis, or Ariamis, whatever. Remember, to get here, you need to return to the Undead Asylum via the Crow's Nest and retrieve the Peculiar Doll. Then, touch the giant painting in Orlando. In the painted world, you have to get the Annex key. Well, you don't have to, I'll talk about that in a minute, but get the Annex key. It's hidden down in the well in the courtyard, but be very careful of the asshole wheel skeletons. Once you have the key, you can unlock the door in the courtyard. And finally, the path to Velka's Rapier is blocked by a wooden board, but you can just bust right through. Now, what I was talking about a second ago, you can also leap to the Rapier or roll to it using the Dark Woodgrain Ring, and you should check out Steezy's or Vegeta's videos to see those techniques. That will keep you from needing to enter the well and get the key if you follow their methods. Velka's Rapier has 4 special properties. 1, it has innate magic damage. 2, it has an occult multiplier. 3, it has a unique moveset that incorporates some slashing techniques, which is a good thing. 4th, it upgrades using Twinkling Titanite. So, this Rapier has good int scaling and a versatile moveset, and is thus a good choice for int builds who like thrusting swords. I guess the biggest issue that I have with it is that it cannot be buffed, so you're stuck with what you have. You need to use, you need both intelligence and dexterity to be able to use this weapon to good effect. So it usually makes more sense to go for a buffable normal weapon at that point. I mean, you're going to have the intelligence to cast at least Great Magic Weapon and probably Crystal Magic Weapon if you're planning on using this Rapier, so you can't cast them on this sword. So yeah, I don't know. This is a good backup weapon though. It is a good backup weapon for a caster because it does good damage if you can't buff for some reason. For example, you are either out of casts of your weapon buff spell, or if an enemy is chasing you, or if you just wanted to carry a bunch of ranged spells and you don't have a buff on you, then this is a good backup weapon. And since it upgrades with Twinkling Titanite, you don't have to waste a rare slab on it. So really, if you have a Dex Int hybrid build, you really have nothing to lose by keeping it around as a backup. And on top of that, you have 1,000,000 style points to gain. These rapiers are used by the partners of Velka. My buddy Tingumaru and I are both speculating that the crow might actually be Velka. She punishes sin, and using humans as fuel to perpetuate the Age of Fire might fall into the category of punishable offenses. When I played through Ariamis to get this weapon, it really, again I should say, when I played through Ariamis again to get this weapon, it really hit me how many crows there are around there. Perhaps the Harpies, who we now know are fanatical followers of Velka, are becoming more like their goddess. I don't know, it's speculation. And I say, hurry up, prepare to die, prepare to buy edition, I need more lore. That's going to wrap up the thrusting swords. Remember to check the website in the description for the guide in an organized format. There were a good... That's going to wrap up the thrusting swords. Remember to check the website in the description for the guide in a more organized format. There were a number of good suggestions for ways to improve the guide last time. Two of my favorites were to show the weapons in action against bosses and to display on-screen which button inputs are used to do the moves. I loved both of those ideas, and I want to incorporate them into the guide, but I can't. And the reason why is it's just the amount of gameplay, research, editing, and just all-around work that goes into these things. It's already difficult to sustain, so if I tried to add more bells and whistles, I wouldn't be able to finish it all. I'm sorry, I really am. I want to make this the most amazing game guide to ever exist, but sadly, I'm not a professional and I have other stuff in my life that I have to get done. So, I'm sorry it isn't perfect, but I hope it's good enough. I'm looking forward once again to hearing your take on the weapons in the comments, because just like last time, I am sure I will learn a ton of new stuff about this badass game just from reading your messages. Yeah. So next up will probably be curved swords, if I remember correctly. And after that, I am trying to decide between axes or fist weapons. So I'll do this. I'll put 2 comments below and you can vote up either axes or fist weapons and let me know which one you want next. Later. And by next, I mean after curved weapons. Curved swords, that is. I'm gonna stop talking.